Hello, can you hear me? Oops. Great, thanks for having me. I'm sure that between me and Daniel, you might be confused that you're at a rock concert and not at a conference on startups. But I promise you, I am going to be talking about startups and entrepreneurship. I really want to thank everyone for the opportunity to come down here and be one of the inaugural speakers at this event. So a round of applause. Everything has been really awesome so far, so thank you everybody at ABStartups. So I came in from San Francisco. Has anyone in the crowd visited San Francisco before? Okay, a few people at least. I actually came in Saturday night and I couldn't really get any rest, so I went out walking and I ended up in Augusta, I think is the neighborhood. And I told them the next day and they were like, well, you went to the weirdest part of the city. And I was like, actually, I felt right at home because it's basically like San Francisco over there. So it's been really amazing to come down and visit. I have a lot to talk about, so I'm just going to jump right into it. Let me make sure that this works. Okay, awesome. So who in the crowd has heard of AngelList before? Okay, amazing. So AngelList is a platform for startups. We help startups fundraise. We help them recruit. We help them do some networking, meeting incubators, things like that. It was founded in 2010 by Babak Nibi and Naval Ravikant. I joined the founding team as the CTO. For years before that, they had written this blog called Venture Hacks, which maybe some of you have heard of. Venture Hacks was a great resource for first-time entrepreneurs. It told them a lot of the secrets about how to raise capital, how to structure your financing, how to negotiate the best deal terms. So of course, the next logical step is everyone was asking, well, how do I get the money? Where are the investors at? So AngelList is what came out of that. And we run a very small team in a very unique way, which is what I want to talk about today. But first, let me get into some of the things that, thank you. This way I can dance while I'm talking to you. So yeah, we've had quite a lot of success in the past 4 years. We've helped almost $500 million get invested into startups through the platform, through the introductions that we've made. And in the past year, we've had this, this online product where you can invest in a startup the same way that you would go to Amazon and buy a book. So you come to AngelList, you find a startup you like, you click 2 or 3 times, and that's it. The money's in the startup's hands. So in the past year, we've moved $83 million just through that. And then we have all these other applications that we run. For example, I said that you can find incubators on AngelList. We've helped 600,000 incubator applications go through AngelList. We've made 290,000 introductions between candidates and startups that are hiring. We probably have the largest database of actively maintained company profiles on the internet. We have about 127,000 company profiles. And we do about 11 million API requests a day, disseminating that information to people. So the really amazing thing that everyone seems to be surprised by when I tell them about AngelList is that we're just 22 people. Now, we haven't been 22 people all time. We've had some hires, some people have come and gone. But right now, the team is at 22 people, and this is the largest we've ever been. And by the way, we're not all white men on the team. We actually do have some women, and we have, actually, I'm the minority. There aren't that many white people on the team, but I just didn't have the icons for it. So what I want to talk about is a bit about our culture and how we built the team, which I think is becoming pretty standard in the Valley. And I'm sure that any tech startup or any software, startup working in software around the world will not find this unfamiliar. But I think it's a very important message, and it's a very disruptive step in how companies are being run. So the first point is that everything we do in code. That's how we keep a very small team. And I'm assuming that most of the entrepreneurs in the crowd are doing something in software. For the people that aren't, I'm sorry, I'll move on from this point in just a moment. But I'm reminded of, you may recognize this face This is not Egghead from Batman. This is Mark Andreessen, the venture capitalist. He's a very famous, well-known name in the Valley. And he had this great essay that came out 3 years ago. And it said that software is eating the world. And this has kind of become a slogan for startups in the Valley. And if you think about all the, there's really no business or no market that's indefensible against software and tech startups. So the canonical examples are retail. Amazon is killing retail. Music, iTunes is taking over music. Videos, Netflix, transportation, Uber. Those are some US-centric startups. I know in Brazil that you have Easy Taxi for transportation and Hotel Urbano for hotel bookings and things like that. So no industry is safe from being disrupted by software right now. And when you look at it that way, the way we position AngelList is that AngelList is the operating system of the startup world. So AngelList is a platform on which we are trying to help startups achieve all of their business needs, which includes fundraising, recruiting, networking, etc. So again, the team is just a very small team. We're only 22 people, but as you can see from the highlighting here, anyone that's in color is technical. Those are people that code. So the team is very heavily organized around doing things in code. We have 8 full-time coders, of which I have one of them. We have 5 people on the team who are not full-time coders, but who on a daily basis do code as part of their job. We have 3 people who are very technical, but just don't do code for whatever reason. It's not their job. And finally, we have 6 people on the team who do kind of traditional non-coding roles like marketing, sales, legal, things like that. So to take a look at each individual team, to start with fundraising, this product, as I said, is right now it's moving about $2.5 million a week into startups, all online. So AngelList is helping 10 to 15 startups get funded every single week just through this online product. Everything is done in code. And it's amazing that just 10 people are running this entire product. So we have 3 full-time coders on the team who are doing forward product development, developing new features. We have 3 people on the team. One's a designer, and the 2 other do operations for closing those fundraisings, but they also write code. And then, as I said, we have other people that are doing legal, sales, things like that, bringing deals on. Now, perhaps even more amazing, our recruiting service, which we help startups hire 75 people per week. They source those candidates through AngelList. They find them on AngelList. They close them through AngelList. We are doing 75 hires per week. Again, this is all in code. So you might think of your typical recruiter is happy to place maybe 1 person a month, a couple people a month. We are outpacing them by about 150, 300x multiplier, just doing it in code. And we have a very small team of people working on this. There's one guy that's doing full-time product development, another guy that's doing design, and then we have someone that's doing product management and operations for that. And then finally, underpinning everything is the engineering team. At the end of the day, AngelList, as I said, is a site. It's a web application. We do have servers. I'm the guy that has to do all the work keeping the servers online. And it's me and one other guy. We do all of the engineering-based work on the site. And this is a pretty serious production environment. It's not the craziest thing in the world, but we are doing 100 million requests per week with just this really small team. So the first thing that I try to emphasize when I talk to tech software startups is that you need to think about everything you're doing, try to do it in code, because software is eating the world, as I've said, and Mark Andreessen actually said. We don't think about the team growing exponentially. We don't care about hiring as many people as possible, which is kind of the typical approach to a startup. You get a lot of money in the bank. You think the first thing that you're supposed to do is hire a bunch of people, and somehow those people are going to be very productive and add to the bottom line for your business. That's not how we look at it. We look at trying to increase the leverage per person. So every time we hire someone on the team, we want to make sure that they're the most, they're raising the average level of the team. They're the most intelligent person. We have all of this code in place so that they can come on and they can be incredibly productive from day one. And when you structure the company like this, our code base is almost as complex as an operating system. So how many developers are in the crowd, by the way? I assume I'm talking to, okay, a pretty decent number of developers. So AngelList is about 250,000 lines of code right now, which is a really serious project. And it's very complex, but it's working for us. And as I said, everything has to be done in code. So this works really well while you're product-oriented. When you find product market fit, when you know who your customers are, when your product really can't be improved anymore, then clearly you're going to want to shift to a sales focus. And that's a very important step in a company, but I think a lot of startups do that way too early before they think about how much they can squeeze out of their product and what exactly they can do in code before they turn to this very manual process of selling by hiring a sales team. So if you're going to run a platform and something based on code, then you're going to want to sweat the plumbing, which may be a very English way of saying this. So this basically means that you want to worry a lot about the infrastructure of what you're building. Now, AngelList, as I said, is a single platform supporting multiple applications. We have this fundraising application, we have this recruiting application, we have applications for startups to apply to incubators, and really, there's all this plumbing that's in place that took us years to get to. So if you look on this slide here, first, AngelList started off as Venture Hacks, this blog. So we really knew our customers ahead of time, which of course I think is a very important step that any startup has to take before they even get started. You need to have a really tight-knit community of people that are going to be ready to be early adopters when your product comes out. If you're developing a consumer product or an enterprise product, you want to have customers lined up at the get-go. And that's how AngelList started. We started with this very active community of entrepreneurs and investors in the Valley. So then once we got past that point and we actually started to code and write a product for this, we spent years working on the platform. Now, there was a lot of pressure on us, of course, especially from investors and VCs to, this has to be monetized, there has to be a business here. That's not how we looked at it. We prioritized building out the platform and getting all the pieces into place so that we could be more highly leveraged in the future and monetize even better down the road and be an even better business down the road. And this is a very common path that you've seen taken by a lot of startups. Facebook and Twitter are very canonical examples. These companies did not make money for years and years, but they did do the right thing of building their platform out, getting their customer base locked in before they started thinking about monetization. So AngelList plumbing is really complex. We have all these pieces in place. We have user profiles, company profiles. I think we have the best company profiles on the internet. All these other kind of standard pieces for a social network. But there's some real subtlety in how important these things are. So, as I said, we place all these people into jobs every week. We move all this money kind of automatically every week through code. And the way that we can do that is because we have so much power that's built into the network from these pieces, such as our signal rankings, which is probably one of the most important things that we built. So AngelList, if you go to Google and you search for Sao Paulo, you're not going to get a totally random list of websites on the internet. That would be very useless for you. And Google doesn't hire tens of thousands of people to sort through every website. That's not how you do it in code. They have an algorithm that ranks the pages, and we did something similar for people in startups. So anytime if you say that you want to come and hire a Ruby developer in Sao Paulo, then we know by looking at their background we compute a score for that person, and we can rank all the people on our site in a nice list, which eliminates a lot of the work that a manual process like a recruiter would have to do for you. So it's very important to get these pieces in place if you're going to do something in code. So make sure that you start with the community, or make sure that you start with some customers before you get started on your business. You want to build a platform that's going to serve their needs. And you want to do that early while you're young, because it's so much harder to do this later on. I mean, think of it as the analogy of if you're trying to fix the plumbing in your house years after it had been built, you have to tear the walls down, it's a giant mess. It's the same thing with a software product. You want to make sure that you get all that architecture right in the first place. So here's maybe the most controversial part of what I'm going to say up here today, is that when I go to hire people, especially when I'm hiring coders, I actually really look for lazy and brilliant people. Now, there's this quote that's very popular in English that says that necessity is the mother of invention. For example, if I want to move this rock up this hill, then it's necessary that I invent the wheel or the lever or the pulley. And I think that's actually pretty accurate. That was the motivation for human invention for most of the early story of human civilization. But now I think that really we have all of our needs met, and it's really just laziness that's the mother of invention. So, all of the things that we're building now, for the most part, are not necessarily things that we need. They're just things that make our life easier. There's so much leisure time. The whole world is at a place where more and more people are able to live a life of leisure, and that's because we're inventing our ways out of a lot of work that we have been doing for the past, the history of human civilization. So I have a case study of something at AngelList that really reflects how little work we do in order to run something. So we have this recruiting product, Talent. So every week we do about 3,500 intros, or introductions between candidates and startups. Of those 3,500, 75 convert into hires, and that's a conservative estimate. And this whole product has no sales or no marketing whatsoever. So nobody is out there selling this. The thing sells itself. It grows through word of mouth. It grows through SEO. If you search for Sao Paulo Ruby developers or Ruby jobs on Google, then AngelList is probably going to be one of the top results. And that's because we spent a lot of time creating this open platform with this optimized SEO to make sure that that was the case. And we're getting our growth that way, through code, not through people. And the thing, as I said, is algorithmically moderated and ranked. So we know who the best developers are because we have this really basic algorithm that goes through and computes the quality score of every single person on the site every day. So it turns out that it takes 0 people to run this product. And I know that's true because the main developer on Talent went on his honeymoon to Tokyo for 3 weeks, and I was tasked with making sure that everything kept running okay. And I acted like I was busy that week, but to be honest, I was doing no work whatsoever. There's really nothing that has to be done. As long as the site is up, as long as the servers are up and the code is running, this product is running itself, it's selling itself, it's growing, and there are 0 people working on it. So basically, the coder who built Talent put himself out of a job in a good way. He was actually one of the lazier people I've met, and as I said, he was a really good hire. So when I think of what our job is as coders, it's not to come in and stay busy. We're not around to create work. The whole job of software is to destroy work. We're here to create more leisure time for ourselves and to pass the buck to the software to do the work for us. So I try to find developers who find code to be a creative endeavor. I try to stay away from finding people, hiring people who obviously just want to stay busy, because those people are not going to innovate themselves out of a job. And ironically enough, you need to hire people that will innovate themselves out of a job, because that's the only way that you're going to innovate in your product and in your market. So just to summarize, the ideal product runs itself. It also sells itself. And you want to make sure that you find people that are not necessarily going to come in just for the sake of being busy every day. You want to find people that are actually interested in innovating themselves constantly out of the work that they're doing. So in an environment like this, where we have so little people working, building this product, we hire these really smart people, and we invite them to wear many hats, to take on many responsibilities. So it turns out that if you look at AngelList, we have on our team, I would say, more than half the team has actually founded a company before. So our team is almost entirely ex-entrepreneurs. There's this great quote from the founder of AngelList on his LinkedIn profile that says that specialization is for insects, which means in an ant colony or a bee colony, you're born into your job and you have no choice what to do for the rest of your life. But humans are a lot different. And I think this old idea of a career path being this very linear thing where you do one thing and stick with that is very outdated, especially in the age of information technology. You can learn to do anything very quickly, especially in the right environment that is supporting those kinds of people and that kind of activity. So just to give you an idea, this is actually my some of the responsibilities that I take on a weekly basis. So I do all of the system operations. I keep the servers online. I'm the guy that typically is supposed to have a big neck beard and plays Dungeons and Dragons and lives with his mom and things like that. There we go. We got one of them over here. But I also do all this other stuff for AngelList as well. I do product development. I code. I still code on a daily basis. Obviously, I'm here talking to you. I do marketing. I go out and do recruiting. I do social media stuff. I run all of our social media accounts. I do customer service. And this is pretty common across everyone on the team. We try to have everyone on the team take on as many responsibilities as they want to. So some other examples are one of our ladies on the team who does inbound deal processing. So she looks at all the deals that come onto the platform, the startups that are raising money. She also handles the other side of that. So she does the operations of closing those funds, putting those funds into the startup's bank accounts, getting all the legal docs done. But as I've said, we're trying to innovate ourselves out of work. So she's learned how to code, which is amazing. And she's coding herself out of the work that she does every day. Now, she probably brings the site down or breaks a page more often than some of the rest of the team. But that's great. We want people to move so fast and to be so bold that they take those risks. And we have a system of deployment set up that if someone does break anything on the site, we can revert it within minutes. And then just another example, our head designer. Not only does he do very lofty, visual UX design at a high level, but he also gets down and dirty in the code and writes CSS, JavaScript. He's really learned how to code in the past 4 years of being at AngelList, which is amazing. And he also does these other things like operations, management. He coordinates all of our meetings. He's the first guy to go to when you want to complain about something. I'm not necessarily sure that he enjoys that job, but somehow he got stuck with it, and he's doing a good job of it. So we let people on the team be as powerful as they want to be and take on as many responsibilities as they want to be. But it takes a level of self-awareness and humility to do this. And you need to foster that in your company. And people that don't want to take on this responsibility, we try not to hire them in the first place. And if we find out that that's how they end up, then we have to let them go. Which is a really tough part, by the way, of building a company. And I think this gets overlooked a lot. But especially early on, unless you're a master in recruiting, which I doubt any first-time entrepreneurs are, you're going to have to let go of a lot of people. And that's maybe the suckiest part of the job, to be honest. So
When you build an environment like this, I find that top talent, the top candidates out there just love working at a place where they can have this founder-like responsibility. Now, it can be chaotic, and people can be really stressed out by it. But the upside of having that much responsibility is more motivating than it is demotivating to be in a chaotic environment. So people need to fail, which I'll talk about in a moment. But one thing that you want to make sure is that you don't get too many cooks in the kitchen, as we say, which is you don't want to have too many people working on the same thing because then you just have some chaotic environment of a committee where nothing's being done and everyone's got an opinion. So in those cases, we always say the tiebreaker goes to the person that's coding, which is a good incentive to make everyone on the team learn how to code so that they can be more influential in the decision-making process at AngelList. So in this environment, it's very important that you allow people to fail. I think that inside of a startup, that microcosm of being in a startup should be very similar to the larger environment of how startups often come and fail. And we encourage that startups fail because we want people to take chances. And the same way on your team, you want to encourage people to take chances and to be bold. And you have to allow them to sometimes fail and admit defeat and not stigmatize that, but see that as a chance for them to grow and learn some lessons from it. So there's this really great quote that I love. I actually stole this from my last talk that says, "Smooth seas do not make skillful sailors." Which basically means that if you're a sailor, obviously if you're just sailing on still waters all the time, that doesn't mean you're a very good sailor. There's really only one way that you can learn how to sail, and that's to really get out there and be in the thick of it and have that experience of the rough seas. And the same thing goes for people on your team and for startups. You want to allow people to work in an environment where they're going to fail, where they're going to go through a lot of adversity and trials and tribulations. And that's the only way that people are going to become stronger and more resilient, which is a very important trait in a team. You want people to be very resilient. So here are like a couple examples of some products at AngelList that were flops, that were defeats, that we had to go back and erase. In some cases, a year of work because it just didn't work out for us. So for example, we used to have this docs product, which was an attempt to take all of the legal processing that goes on at the end of a deal and move that entirely online into code. Now, this didn't work for a lot of reasons. First off, it was too complex. It was a boondoggle project, which means that it just dragged on and on and on, and it never seemed to end. The market didn't really seem to care about it that much, and more importantly, lawyers didn't seem to care about it. It's really hard to put lawyers out of jobs. They've been doing this forever. That's the last thing that they want to do is lose their jobs. So we had no uptake. We had no adoption from lawyers. They did not like this product. Our market didn't like this product. And after working on this for a year and putting in a lot of time, we had to scrap the entire thing, which was a painful thing to realize, but it had to be done. And we learned a lot of lessons from that. And from those lessons that we learned, we went on to do the online closing product, which now incorporates a lot of the things that we failed at with the docs stuff. And similarly, we have this recruiting product that I've talked about. We decided about a year ago that it was time to monetize it, to finally start charging and making money off this product. But that monetization plan wasn't very well thought out. It damaged our brand. People were surprised that suddenly we were charging for this product that was totally free. There were a lot of internal issues. The team was basically split right down the middle, with people saying that this was a giant mistake and that other people saying that we need to go down this route. And after much consternation and arguing, we finally admitted that this was a failure and pulled this. And now we're in the process of rebooting, monetizing this talent product. And I think it's great that we've learned all these lessons for the first time. I'm hoping that we're not going to make the same mistakes again. So I think startups that work this way, they're very high-stress environments, but people love working in these environments. You want people to move fast, you want them to be bold, and you've got to expect failure when that happens. It's okay. Repeated failure is obviously not okay, but give people the chance to do it at least once or twice. And really, the sign of a great team is resiliency, which I'll talk about a little more here in a moment. And then finally, in this market, which I'm not really entirely familiar with the Brazilian VC market, the startup market here, but in the Valley, the market is super hot. It's the right time to be a developer. Developers live like kings, basically, in San Francisco and the rest of the Valley. So if you want to compete in a hot market like that, you have to make sure that you're giving people really big perks, financially, culturally. So AngelList pays above market rate for talent, which we get a lot of pushback from our, remember, we are ourselves a startup with our own investors, and sometimes our investors are unhappy with how much money we're spending on people. But if you remember, we are not a typical startup. We do not have any costs, basically, except for the costs of funding the developers on our team. So we pay top of market for a startup of our size, which is starts at about $150,000 range. And we also give very large equity grants, especially considering what the valuation of our company is right now. And then we have all the standard perks, office space, health insurance. You know, in the US, a lot of these things, the burden is taken on by private companies. And a lot of startups try to get around doing some of this stuff, but it's kind of a standard thing you have to give. And then, of course, we have all the Valley standard stuff, which is we have all the meals are catered, people's commute costs are reimbursed. We have a masseuse in the office every couple weeks, things like that. And then we have some not-so-standard perks that are really the things that people really get excited about on the team. Every 3 months, we go on a quarterly offsite. We take everyone nearby to a nice house, maybe an hour out of San Francisco, like a Napa or someplace like that. And we do a day of talking about strategy, but we also take the rest of the weekend to just get together and party and drink and get in the hot tub and in the pool, and everyone's friends and family comes. And it turns out that that's really important because we're building camaraderie. It starts to feel like you're a family. So not only do we do those quarterly offsites, but we also do an annual offsite where we take the entire company overseas for a week. And again, we spend some time working and we get some good work done. But mostly it's for us to bond and have a good time and make memories together and build that camaraderie. So these are some photos from some of our offsites in the past couple years. They've all been in Mexico just because Mexico is very convenient for us. And last year we actually had 2 offsites because we were so excited about how well our fundraising product was doing. Naval, the CEO, was very gracious enough to agree to pay for a second offsite. So these offsites are kind of legendary. And when I talk to people on the team, almost universally, they tell me that the time that they decided that AngelList was the place that they wanted to spend the next part of their career was when they came to these offsites and had so much fun bonding with the rest of the team. So I think it's important to make sure that you're giving the right perks to your team. Of course, that's financial. That means paying good salaries, giving good equity grants, not being stingy. The market is really moving here. Used to be able to get away with giving very small equity grants, but now developers are expecting larger and larger pieces of the company as they come on. And then you want to, I really advise making your team very social and having these events where they can get out and socialize with each other. Because the best perk really is coming in and working with a team of top quality people who you really get along with. There's really nothing better about a job than coming in and working with great people every day. So building a great team is going to be very important, and it's kind of this snowball effect that as you pick up more great people will just want to join. And once you hit that point, it's a really amazing thing. And then on top of that, of course, having an awesome mission also helps out a lot. and AngelList, we don't have to do much work to try to sell what we do. It's really amazing to be able to go around the world and have everyone recognize the impact of your work. And that's really important when we go out to recruit people. So perks are very important. So basically, to summarize everything that I'm talking about, I really haven't touched that much on strategies about building product or finding customers or things like that. To me, I don't see that as the most difficult part of building a company. The companies that I see fail, they fail because they can't execute, because they don't have a good team in place. They can't survive adversity. I don't think a team should be measured by their successes, but rather how well they've overcome adversities and, overcome adversity and challenges as they've grown. So I hope everything I've told you has given you some idea of how we've done that at AngelList, and I hope the best of luck for you guys in building your own teams and the companies that you're going to go out and start. So thank you for listening, and if anyone has any questions, I think they're going to pass some microphones around.